Hello, and welcome to the Sleepy Stream. That's right, it's me, Blashwath, and we're back at it. A lovely Saturday evening. I am all cozied out. I was just out for a long, chilly bike ride outside. I think it's a biting 42 degrees must be. Let me consult that really quickly so I can give you an accurate reading of the temperature, because I'm sure that's what you're tuning into the Sleepy Stream. Wow, spot on, yeah. A chilly 42 degrees outside in London. And so I was out biking to a couple parks today, but not a couple parks, just the one, Regent's Park, but I biked around it a couple times. I think it's a good 8 kilometers with the 2 laps around it, and then 2 kilometers over and 2 back. So you're looking at 12 kilometers of biking in 42 degree weather. It was a bit chilly, so I'm very nice and warm and huddled up right now with my blankets and my pillows and my pupper, of course. Aw, look at him. He's so excited for the Sleepy Stream. And I know you are too. And I am also so very excited for the Sleepy Stream. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I am mistaken. No, I'm not. This is Chapter 7, which means today, if I am not mistaken, I don't know why I said that again. Today marks the 1-week anniversary of us doing the Sleepy Stream every night. Now, I'm not one to go wild about anniversaries or anything, but I think that's pretty fun. And I think these bedtime stories have been doing everyone a lot of good. So, I'm just gonna send a couple pings out to people, put my feelers into the air, make sure our friends who want to tune in are all nice and ready, but we'll be getting on in no time. Hey Surya, how's it going? It's wonderful to see you here. Not much. I'm doing lovely. Had a long bike ride earlier today. It was very chilly, and so I'm in my pajamas. I've even got socks on. I don't usually wear socks indoors because I think it's stupid and overly warm, but right now I'm cold enough that the socks on indoors is making a lot of sense. I've got my pupper with me. Of course, I've got some candles I lit up this time because I thought it would add atmosphere if we had candles. Of course, we're just going to ignore the fact that this is a giant fire hazard because both of these are tapered end candles, which means they aren't meant to stand upright. You're meant to put them in candle holders. But they're just here with a little bit of wax sticking them down to the desks. So, oh lord, we'll see if they last. Hey Akshay, how's it going? Pleasure to see you here also. We've actually got a relatively short chapter for tonight, so sliding around with socks is the best. You're right, Surya, that is one of the greatest things. I still do that to this day on hardwood, although the hardwood in this room isn't quite slick enough to do it back and forth. Yeah, so we've got these 2 lovely candles, which are right next to the bed, ready to drop on it. It's like ice skating, but warm. Isn't ice skating, but warm, just regular skating? Isn't that what that is? What else? Oh yeah, I've got my cup of tea for the evening. I've got my lovely spiced apple infusion. Nice and toasty warm. I am just going to... No, it's different. Okay, if you say so. There we go. So, I've got my tea all nice and ready. I'm really ready to go for this chapter of Harry Potter because do you guys know what today's chapter is? Do you have any idea what chapter of Harry Potter we're reading today? I'll give you a hint. It's chapter 7 of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. You've got 10 seconds to answer. Let's go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, no one got it in time. That's a shame. Probably because of stream delay. Well, we're reading the chapter with the sorting hat in it, which means we get to see who gets sorted into which house. And I think that's going to be quite a lovely, fun chapter. I actually had a peek at it I've started pre-screening the chapters, shall we say, and by that I mean literally just checking how long they are. And so the chapter for today is actually a relatively short one, which means that's why I'm blabbing a little bit now to fill up the time, because we've actually only got about 14 pages of reading ahead, I think. And after last chapter, which I think was like a whopping 26 pages, it'll be good to slow down a little bit, take a nice relaxing, sleepy stream as we read through the Sorting Hat and figure out where Harry actually gets sorted into. Now, of course, I think we all know the answer to that one, but we can all pretend, can't we? I swear to God, it's like, some nights it's like I stay up feeling very awake for the sleepy stream, and I'm really up and kicking, like I'm ready to go. I'm like, oh man, I'm so excited to stream. And then I turn on like my flower lights, maybe I get the moon, maybe I light some candles or something. I fluff up the pillows on this corner of the bed, get out the pupper, put on a nice cozy sweater if I'm not already wearing one, get the book out, and then by the time I do all of that, turn on the lo-fi and press the button to start streaming, my eyelids just droop. And I'm just like, oh, I could fall asleep right now and I'd be so happy. But of course, we can't have a sleepy stream that's literally you watching me sleep. Or could we? You think I could get views and money for that? Would you guys watch me just, I mean, like, we can do that right now, you know. I can just, get cozy. Oh, you know what, guys? I think this is gonna be the sleepy stream for it. Oh yeah, that's great. Okay, you guys have a lovely stream out there. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. I've got a YouTube channel you can follow me on. It's pretty wild, you know. I don't think we need to be reading, you know. Let's skip the stories part of the bedtime stories and just go, straight to bed. Oh man, that's so nice and cozy. Oh, hello, pupper. Okay, no, we gotta pull through, guys. We gotta power through. Don't worry. If I was a girl, you bet I could make... You're right. If I was a girl, I probably could actually make money doing that. Alas, I am not. So we have to deal with what we get. No, there's a reason we got the stories part of the bedtime stories. And that's because we're going to read bedtime stories, and then we'll see. Then I can probably go to bed after that. I can soon embrace the sweet release of sleep. This train ticket is ready to fall into that candle. I'm gonna move that bad boy over there. That seems like a good place for it for now. We're just gonna do our standard wait for a little bit longer, just in case anyone wants to tune in, just in case we have any last viewers who are coming by. But don't worry, we're going to be getting into this very quickly. And as I said, I did do a bit of pre-screening, and I think there's some very lovely illustrations for this chapter. Of course, this book has been consistent with the illustrations. They've all been absolutely gorgeous so far, but there's some very, very cool ones in this chapter that are nice full page. So, yeah, I would encourage you guys, if you haven't done already, you know, the sleepy stream isn't really the sleepy stream unless you guys are joining me with a nice cozy mug of tea or a blanket or a sweater. You don't have to do the whole shebang like I have over here and get your fairy lights going and sit in your bed and everything. But, you know, the most you can do to get nice and cozy and relaxed, you know, makes it worth it. Yeah. Okay. So, let's just do one last scope around. See if we've got our peeps. You know what? I think we've got everyone who's going to show up for now, and I think it would be best if we just got started, you know? Got started with the stream. So, I'm going to take one last sip of this tea. I've actually I went all out a couple days ago when I was getting these candles because I was shopping at Waitrose, which is a local grocery store. It's kind of like Whole Foods, like it's that level of fancy grocery shopping. But I was out shopping at Waitrose, and I saw that they already had Christmas supplies out. Like, no joke. They had, like, potpourri and baubles and little trees you could get and candles and stuff. And so I love the winter holidays. The winter holidays is my favorite time of the year. So I'm a sucker for this kind of thing, but I went into the store and I saw that they had various candles and air fresheners and potpourri and whatnot. So I ended up getting a sort of Christmas pine scented air freshener, which you can't smell it obviously because we haven't invented smell-o-vision yet for Twitch.tv. They'll get on that soon enough, I'm sure. It's pretty critical. But yeah, I got some frosted pine air freshener, and you spray it around here, and it smells like those, I don't know why this part of my chin is suddenly so itchy. It's like right here. I think I'm dying, guys. Can someone WebMD this if you get itchy on just this part of your chin? No. But I went out and got an air freshener, and it smells like those the pine in the wreaths you get around Christmas time. But that really nice. It's not the usual pine scent, there's something more distinctly wintry about it. I'm not sure what it is, but the point is, I got some of that. I've sprayed it around my room, so my whole room smells very Christmassy right now, and I love it. Okay, so, sorry, little tangent there. But anyways, I think it's time that we get into some Harry Potter. So, tonight we've got in store Chapter 7 of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Let's make sure there's no feedback. And we can hear me fine. I'm going to turn that lo-fi down just a little bit to be safe. There we go. Okay. Chapter 7 of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. The Sorting Hat. And actually, right off the bat, we've got a little illustration. I'm not sure what of, I'll be honest. I think these are just some ramparts in Hogwarts, but it doesn't quite make sense considering the timing of it all. But there you go. There's a warty hog at the top there, so I guess it must be Hogwarts. Can't imagine what else it would be. That is actually one very warty hog. It's like alarmingly warded, I would go to a doctor if I were that hog. But I'm not. Anyways. The door swung open at once. A tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes stood out there. She had a very stern face, and Harry's first thought was that this was not someone to cross. "The first year is Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She pulled the door open wide. The entrance hall was so big you could have fitted the whole of the Dursleys' house in it. The stone walls were lit with flaming torches like the ones at Gringotts. The ceiling was too high to make out, and a magnificent marble staircase facing them led to the upper floors. They followed Professor McGonagall across the flagged stone floor. Harry could hear the drone of hundreds of voices from a doorway to the right. The rest of the school must already be here. But Professor McGonagall showed the first years into a small, empty chamber off the hall. They crowded in, standing rather close together than they usually would have done, peering about nervously. "Welcome to Hogwarts," said Professor McGonagall. "The start of the term banquet will begin shortly, but before you've taken your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses. The sorting is very important as a ceremony because, while you are here, your house will be something like a family within Hogwarts. You will have classes with the rest of your house, sleep in your house dormitory, and spend free time in your house common room. The 4 houses are called Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Each house has its own noble history, and each has produced outstanding witches and wizards. While you are at Hogwarts, your triumphs will earn you house points, while any rule-breaking will lose you house points. At the end of the year, The house with the most points will be awarded the House Cup, a great honor. I hope each of you will be a credit to whichever houses you become a part of. The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school. I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you're waiting. Her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's cloak, which was fashioned under his left ear, and on Ron's smudged nose. Harry nervously tried to flatten his hair. "I shall return when we are ready for you," said Professor McGonagall. "Please wait quietly." She left the chamber. Harry swallowed. "How exactly do they sort us into houses?" he asked Ron. Some sort of a... Oh, what was Ron's voice? Anyone remember Ron's voice? Some sort of a test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking. I think that's kind of Ron's voice for now. Harry's heart gave a horrible jolt. A test? In front of the whole school? But he didn't know any magic yet. What on earth would he have to do? He hadn't expected something like this the moment they arrived. He looked around anxiously and saw that everyone else looked terrified too. No one was talking much except Hermione Granger, who was whispering very fast about all the spells she had learnt and wondering which ones she'd need. Harry tried hard not to listen to her. He'd never been more nervous. Never. Not even when he had to take a school report home to the Dursleys saying that he had somehow turned his teacher's wig blue. He kept his eyes fixed on the door. Any second now, Professor McGonagall would come back and lead him to his doom. Then, something happened which made him jump about a foot in the air. Several people behind him screamed. "What the?" He gasped. So did the people around him. About 20 ghosts had just streamed through the back wall. Pearly white and slightly transparent, they glided across the room, talking to each other and hardly glancing at the first years. And here, you can see that through the bottom of the page, there are a multitude of ghosts of various sorts floating around. We've got one mounted on a horse with a large sword. There goes our train ticket to Hogwarts. Even ghost dogs. There's a ghost poodle down here with little puffy ghost hair, the Fat Friar, nearly headless Nick, a skeleton in a dress with an umbrella who doesn't look very familiar at all. Anyways, they all seem to be arguing. What looked like a fat little monk was saying, "Forgive and forget, I say. We ought to give him a second chance." "My dear Friar, haven't we given Peeves all the chances he deserves? He gives us all a bad name, you know. He's not even really a ghost. I say, what are you all doing here?" A ghost wearing a ruff and tights had suddenly noticed the first years. Nobody answered. "New students," said the Fat Friar, smiling round them. "About to be sorted, I suppose?" A few people nodded mutely. "Hope to see you in Hufflepuff," said the Friar. "My old house, you know." "Move along now," said a sharp voice. "The sorting ceremony is about to start." Professor McGonagall had returned. One by one, the ghosts floated away through the opposite wall. "Now, form a line," Professor McGonagall told the first years, "and follow me." Feeling oddly as though his legs had turned to lead, Harry got into line behind a boy with sandy hair, with Ron behind him, and they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the great hall. Harry had never imagined such a strange and splendid place. It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles which were floating in midair over 4 long tables, where the rest of the students were sitting. These tables were laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. At the top of the hall was another long table where teachers were sitting. Professor McGonagall led the first years up here, so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. The hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Dotted here and there amongst the students, the ghosts shone a misty silver. Mainly, to avoid all the staring eyes, Harry looked upwards, and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history." It was hard to believe that there was a ceiling at all, and that the Great Hall didn't simply open up on the heavens. Harry quickly looked down as Professor McGonagall silently placed a four-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool, she put a pointed wizard's hat. This hat was patched and frayed and extremely dirty. Aunt Petunia wouldn't have let it in the house. Maybe they had to try and get a rabbit out of it, Harry thought wildly. That seemed the sort of thing. Noticing everyone in the hall was now staring at the hat, he stared at it too. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. The hat twitched then. A rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. "Oh, you may not think that I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter hat than me. You keep your bowlers black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I am the Hogwarts sorting hat, and I can cap them all. There's nothing hidden in your hand the sorting hat can't see, so try me on and I will tell you where you ought to be. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring nerve and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. You might belong in Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuffs are truly unafraid of toil. Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Or perhaps in Slytherin you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap." The whole hall burst into applause as the hat finished its song. Please burst into applause for that song. It bowed to each of the four tables, and then became quite still again. "So we've just got to try it on," Ron whispered to Harry. "I'll kill Fred. He was going on about wrestling a troll." Harry smiled weakly. Yes, trying on the hat was a lot better than having to do a spell, but he did wish he could have tried it on without everyone watching. That seemed to be asking quite a lot. Harry didn't feel brave or quick-witted or any of it at the moment. If only the hat had mentioned a house for people who felt a bit queasy, then that would have been the one for him. Professor McGonagall now stepped forward holding a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted," she said. "Abbot Hannah." A pink-faced girl with blonde pigtails stumbled out of line, putting on the hat, which fell right down over her ears, and sat down. A moment's pause. "Hufflepuff!" shouted the hat. The table on the right cheered and clapped as Hannah went to sit down at the Hufflepuff table. That's called Hufflepuff. Harry saw the ghost of the Fat Friar waving merrily at her. "Bones Susan!" "Hufflepuff!" shouted the hat again, and Susan scuttled off to sit next to Hannah. "Boot Terry!" "Ravenclaw!" The table second from the left clapped this time. Several Ravenclaws stood up to shake hands with Terry as he joined them. "Brocklehurst Mandy!" went to Ravenclaw too, but Brown Lavender became the first new Gryffindor, and the table to the far left exploded with cheers. Harry could see Ron's twin brother's catcalling. Bulstrode Millicent then became a Slytherin. Perhaps it was Harry's imagination. After all, he'd heard about Slytherin, but he thought they looked a rather unpleasant lot. He was starting to feel definitely sick now. He remembered being picked for teams during sports lessons at his old school. He had always been last to be chosen. Not because he was no good, but because no one wanted Dudley to think they liked him. "Finch Fletchley Jeston!" "Hufflepuff!" Sometimes, Harry noticed, the hat shouted out the house at once, but others, it took a little while to decide. Finnegan Seamus, the sandy-haired boy next to Harry in the line, sat on the stool for almost a whole minute before the hat declared him Gryffindor. "Granger Hermione." Hermione almost ran to the stool and jammed the hat eagerly on her head. "Gryffindor!" shouted the hat. Ron groaned. A horrible thought struck Harry, as horrible thoughts always do when you're very nervous. What if he wasn't chosen at all? What if he just sat there with the hat over his eyes for ages until Professor McGonagall jerked it off his head and said there had obviously been a mistake, and he'd better get back on the train? When Neville Longbottom, the boy who kept losing his toad was called, he fell over on his way to the stool. The hat took a long time to decide with Neville. When it finally shouted Gryffindor, Neville ran off, still wearing it, and had to jog back amid gales of laughter to give it back to McDougal Morag. Malfoy swaggered forward when his name was called, and he got his wish at once. The hat had barely touched his head when it screamed, "Slytherin!" Malfoy went on to join his friends Crabbe and Goyle, looking pleased with himself. There weren't many people left now. Moon, Knott, Parkinson, then a pair of twin girls, Patel and Patel, then Perk Salian, and then, at last, Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forwards, whispers suddenly broke out like hissing fires all over the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" The last thing Harry Potter saw, before the hat dropped over his eyes, was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. The next second, he was looking at the black inside of the hat. He waited. And here, you can see we've got Harry with the hat falling over his head. Quite different from the hat in the movie. It's very much a patchwork hat, sort of built of all little different patches of fabrics. It's got a lovely black quill going over it, but you can just make out the eyes and the little mouth where it is. Next second, he was looking at the black inside of a hat. He waited. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes. And a nice thirst to prove yourself. Now that's interesting. So, where shall I put you?" Harry gripped at the edges of the stool and thought, "Not Slytherin? Not Slytherin?" "Not Slytherin, eh?" said the small voice. "Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head, and Slytherin will help you on the ways to greatness. No doubt about it. No? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor!" Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily towards the Gryffindor table. He was so relieved to have been chosen and not put in Slytherin, he hardly noticed that he was getting the loudest cheer yet. Percy the Prefect got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" Harry sat down opposite the ghost in the rough he had seen earlier. The ghost patted his arm, giving Harry the sudden horrible feeling he had just plunged into a bucket of ice-cold water. He could see the high table properly now. At the end nearest to him sat Hagrid, who caught his eyes and gave him a thumbs up. Harry grinned back. And there, in the center of the high table, in a large golden chair, sat Albus Dumbledore. Harry recognized him at once from the card he got out of the chocolate frog on the train. Dumbledore's silver hair was the only thing in the whole hall that shone as brightly as the ghost's. Harry spotted Professor Quirrell, looking quite a sight with that massive turban. Honestly, what a look. I wish I could pull off a turban that well. The nervous young man from the Leaky Cauldron. He was looking very peculiar in a large purple turban. And now, there were only 3 people left to be sorted. Turpin Lisa became a Ravenclaw, and then it was Ron's turn. He was a pale green by now. Harry crossed his fingers under the table, and a second later the hat shouted, "Gryffindor!" Harry clapped loudly with the rest as Ron collapsed in the chair next to him. "Well done, Ron, excellent," said Percy Weasley pompously across Harry as Zambini Blaze was made a Slytherin. Professor McGonagall rolled up her scroll and took the sorting hat away. Harry looked down at his empty gold plate. He had only just realized how hungry he was. The pumpkin pasties seemed ages ago. Albus Dumbledore had got to his feet. He was beaming at the students. His arm was opened wide, as if nothing could have pleased him more than to see them all there. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome." Sorry, Dumbledore's voice is a bit low and smooth here. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words. And here they are. Nitwit, Blubber, Oddment, Tweak. Thank you." He sat back down. Everybody clapped and cheered. Harry didn't know whether to laugh or not. Is he a bit mad? He asked Percy uncertainly. Mad, said Percy airily. He's a genius. Best wizard in the world. But he is a bit mad, yes? Potatoes, Harry. Harry's mouth fell open. The dishes in front of him were now piled with food. He had never seen so many things he liked to eat on one table: roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, bacon and steak, boiled potatoes, roast potatoes, chips, Yorkshire pudding, peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and, for some strange reason, mint humbugs. The Dursleys had never exactly starved Harry, but he'd never been allowed to eat as much as he'd like. The Dursleys had always taken anything Harry really wanted, even if it made him sick. Harry piled his plate with a bit of everything except the humbugs and began to eat. It was all delicious. That does look good, said the ghost in the rough sadly, watching Harry cut up his steak. Can't you? I haven't eaten for nearly 500 years, said the ghost. I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, at your service, resident ghost of the Gryffindor Tower. I know who you are, Ron said suddenly. My brothers told me about you. You're nearly Headless Nick. I'd prefer if you call me Sir Nicholas de Mimsy, the ghost began stiffly, but sandy-haired Seamus Finnegan interrupted. Nearly headless? How can you be nearly headless? Sir Nicholas looked extremely miffed, as if their little chat wasn't going at all the way he had wanted. Like this, he said irritably. He seized at his left ear and pulled. His whole head swung off his neck and fell onto his shoulders as if it was on a hinge. Somebody had obviously tried to behead him, but it had not been done properly. Looking pleased at the stunned looks on their faces, nearly Headless Nick flipped his head back onto his neck, coughed, and said, So you Gryffindors, I hope you're going to help us win the house championship this year. Gryffindor have never gone so long without winning. Slytherins have got the cup 6 years in a row. The Bloody Baron's becoming almost unbearable. He's the Slytherin ghost. And before we move on, we've got a lovely image of nearly Headless Nick there, floating about with a little kerchief, his head not quite all the way on, as you would expect. Harry looked over to the Slytherin table and saw a horrible ghost sitting there, with blank, staring eyes, a gaunt face, and robes stained with silver blood. He was right next to Malfoy, who, Harry was pleased to see, didn't look too pleased with the seating arrangements either. How'd he get so covered in blood? Asked Seamus with great interest. I've never asked, said nearly Headless Nick delicately. When everyone had eaten as much as they could, the remains of the food faded from the plates, leaving them sparkling clean, as before. A moment later, puddings appeared. Blocks of ice cream in every flavor you could think of. Apple pies, treacle tarts, chocolate eclairs and jam donuts, trifle, strawberries, jelly, rice puddings. As Harry helped himself to a treacle tart, the talk turned to their families. I'm half and half, said Seamus. Me dad's a muggle. Mem didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. Bit of a nasty shock for him. The others laughed. What about you, Neville? Said Ron. Well, my gran brought me up, and she's a witch, said Neville. But the family thought I was a muggle for ages. My great-uncle Algy kept trying to catch me off my guard and force the magic out of me. He pushed me off the end at Blackpool Pier once. I nearly drowned, but nothing happened until I was 8. Great-uncle Algy came round for tea, and he was hanging me outside of an upstairs window by my ankles when my great-auntie Edmund offered him a meringue, and he accidentally let go. But I bounced, all the way down to the garden and into the road. They were all really pleased. Gran was crying, she was so happy, and you should have seen their faces when I got here. They thought I might not be magic enough to come, you see. Great-uncle Algy was so pleased he bought me my toad. On Harry's side, Percy, Weasley, and Hermione were talking about lessons. I do hope they start straight away. There's so much to learn. I'm particularly interested in transfiguration, you know? Turning something into something else. Of course, it's supposed to be very difficult. You'll be starting small, just matches into needles and that sort of thing. Harry, who was starting to feel warm and sleepy, looked up at the high table again. Hagrid was drinking deeply from his goblet. Professor McGonagall was talking to Professor Dumbledore. Professor Quirrell, in his absurd turban, was talking to a teacher with greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and sallow skin. It happened very suddenly. The hooked-nosed teacher looked past Quirrell's turban straight into Harry's eyes. and a sharp hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead. "Ouch!" Harry clapped his hand to his forehead. "What is it?" said Percy. Nothing." The pain had gone as quickly as it had come. Harder to shake off was the feeling Harry had gotten from the teacher's look. A feeling that he didn't like Harry at all. "Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell?" he asked Percy. "Oh, you know Quirrell already, do you? No wonder he's looking so nervous. That's Professor Snape. He teaches potions, but he doesn't want to. Everyone knows it's Quirrell's job he's after. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape does." Harry watched Snape for a while, but Snape didn't look at him again. At last, the puddings disappeared too, and Professor Dumbledore got to his feet again. The hall fell silent. "Just a few more words now that we are all fed and watered. I have a few start-of-term notices to give you. First years should not forget that the forest in the grounds is forbidden to all pupils, and a few of our older students would do well to remember that as well." Dumbledore's twinkling eyes flashed in the direction of the Weasley twins. "I have also been asked by Mr. Filch, the caretaker, to remind you all that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors. Quidditch trials will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house team should contact Madame Hooch. And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death." Harry laughed, but he was one of the few that did. "He's not serious," he muttered to Percy. "Must be," said Percy, frowning at Dumbledore. "It's odd, because usually he gives us a reason why we're not allowed to go somewhere. The forest full of dangerous beasts, everyone knows that. I do think he might have told the prefects at least. And now, before we go to bed, let us sing—" God, more singing. "Let us sing the school song," cried Dumbledore. Harry noticed that the other teacher's smiles had become rather fixed. Dumbledore gave his wand a little flick as if he were now trying to get a fly off the end, and a long gold ribbon flew out of it, which rose high above the tables and twisted itself into snake-like words. "Everybody pick their favorite tune," said Dumbledore, "and off we go." The school bellowed, "Oh, Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hoggy-Warty Hogwarts, teach us something, please. Whether we be old or bald or young with scabby knees, our heads could do with filling with some interesting stuff. For now they're bare and full of air, dead flies and bits of fluff. So teach us things that are worth knowing, bring back what we've forgot. Just do your best, we'll do the rest, and until our brains all rot." There we go. We powered through that one, didn't we? Everybody finished the song at different times. At last, only the Weasley twins were left singing along to a very slow funeral march. Dumbledore conducted their last few lines with his wand, and when they finished, he was one of those who clapped loudest. "Ah, music," he said, wiping his eyes. "A magic beyond all we do here. And now, bedtime. Off you trot." The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the chattering crowds out of the great hall and up the marble staircase. Harry's legs were like lead again, but only because he was so tired and full of food. He was too sleepy even to be surprised that the people in the portraits along the corridors whispered and pointed as they passed, or that twice Percy led them through doorways hidden behind sliding panels and hanging tapestries. They climbed more staircases, yawning and dragging their feet, and Harry was just wondering how much further they had to go when they came to a sudden halt. A bundle of walking sticks was floating in midair ahead of them. As Percy took a step towards them, they started throwing themselves at him. "Peeves," Percy whispered to the first years. "A poltergeist." He raised his voice. "Peeves, show yourself!" A rude sound like air being let out of a balloon followed. "Do you want me to go to the Bloody Baron?" There was a pop, and a little man with wicked dark eyes and a wide mouth appeared, floating cross-legged in the air, clutching the walking sticks. "Ooh," he said with an evil cackle. "Ickle firsties, what fun!" He swooped at them suddenly. They all ducked. "Go away, Peeves, or the Baron will hear about this, I mean it!" Peeves stuck out his tongue and vanished, dropping the walking sticks on Neville's head. They heard him zooming away, rattling coats of armor as he passed. "You'll want to watch out for Peeves," said Percy again as they set off. The Bloody Baron's the only one who can control him. He won't even listen to us prefix. Here we are. At the end of the corridor hung a portrait of a very fat woman in a silk dress. "Password?" she said. "Caput Draconis," said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it. Neville needed a leg up, and found themselves in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory, and the boys through another. At the top of a spiral staircase, they were obviously in one of the towers, they found their beds at last. 5 four-posters hung with deep red velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. "Great food, isn't it?" Ron murmured to Harry through the hangings. "Get off, Scravers! He's chewing my sheets." Harry was going to ask Ron if he had had any of the treacle tart, but fell asleep almost immediately. Perhaps Harry had eaten a bit too much, because he had a very strange dream. He was wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which kept talking to him, telling him that he must transfer to Slytherin at once because it was his destiny. Harry told the turban he didn't want to be in Slytherin, and it got heavier and heavier. He tried to pull it off, but it tightened painfully, and there was Malfoy, laughing at him as he struggled with it. Then Malfoy turned into the hook-nosed teacher Snape, whose laugh became high and cold. There was a burst of green light, and Harry woke, sweating and shaking. He rolled over and fell asleep again, and when he woke the next day, he didn't remember his dream at all. And there you have Chapter 7 of Harry Potter, and the Philosopher's Stone. That's right. Harry's been sorted into Gryffindor. Woohoo! Very exciting. The next chapter, of course, we'll start to see classes a little bit more, but strange little dream at the end there. I almost completely forgot about that part in the books. And the song numbers, oh my word. Someone's gonna have to clip those songs for me. Jesus, I do not remember there being songs at all. Is the stream still running? Clipped out for a second on my laptop. Yes, it is. Okay, thank God. Great, okay. I don't know why I bothered to check now anyways, because I'm signing off. Well, if you joined us for the Sleepy Stream today, thank you so very much. I really hope you enjoyed listening to some Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. If you did, don't forget, we're here every night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can pop by at any moment. Well, not at any moment. You can pop by any day at this time, and we will be reading Harry Potter, and we'll do so tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, I know I said Sundays we're going to be playing video games. I do have a lot of homework to catch up on, so we're going to play that by ear. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though. If you tune in here and the stream is not already live, just come back at 8:30 and we'll be there playing video game. We'll be there reading Harry Potter. But 6:30 p.m. if you tune in, we might be playing some sort of game, probably like Fortnite or Warcraft or anything, really, but we'll see. Anyways, thanks so much for joining us for the Sleepy Stream. I hope you had a lovely evening, and don't forget to stay cozy out there, friends.